Yes, it is unrivaled. It is also unwatched. Look, let's be honest. We can sugarcoat it all you want, but if you don't have Caitlin Clark playing women's basketball, or if you're not the NCAA tournament playing women's basketball, you got nothing. Zero zip, nothing. Angel Reese may be playing in the league, but who wants to see a goofy 6'6" woman miss layups? Not I.
What happens when Caitlin Clark is out of the picture? The new basketball league just learned the hard way. Opening weekend ratings are in, and they're about as lackluster as an Angel Reese layup. Remember when Reese said this?
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize.
Looks like her big talk just got slammed by reality. Talk about a massive train wreck. Stick around as we break down the numbers, dive into fan reactions, and analyze what this means for the new 3-on-3 league, which was banking on Reese as its biggest draw. Trust me, you don't want to miss this reality check. Ready? Let's dive in.
They released the first television numbers, TNT did, and they're bragging about them because, well, they're the best they've ever been. Because they've only been once. It's like being the most handsome man at the Dockett's family reunion. It sounds good, but it really doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. Look, let's be honest. The new women's basketball professional 3-on-3 league. The numbers were released from TNT. And they are not very.
Remember when Angel Reese couldn't stop proclaiming herself as the reason people watch women's basketball? Those were the days. Reese was riding high on her newfound fame, soaking up the spotlight after her infamous stunt during LSU's championship game against Iowa. She was everywhere, talk shows, social media, you name it. And boy, did she have plenty to say about her star power. Reese was practically shouting from the rooftops, declaring herself the face of women's basketball. She made sure anyone who'd listen knew she was the reason fans were tuning in. It was Angel Reese that you'd think she was the second coming of Michael Jordan or something.
And it's hilarious because it's my understanding now, she keeps telling us, Angel Reese keeps telling us, that it's not just Caitlin Clark, that she's part of this brigade of women's basketball players that are leading all these new viewers into the WNBA. And I think it's these ratings right here that prove the biggest point.
You know what they say about pride coming before a fall? Well, Angel Reese just took a major tumble, and it's a rough one. The ratings for the new league are in, and let's just say they're falling far short of the hype. Remember all that big talk about how people tune in just for Angel Reese? Now's her chance to put her money where her mouth is. As the supposed star of the league, she's expected to carry the show. But as it turns out, she's not quite the draw she claimed to be. The numbers tell a very different story, and it's not a flattering one for Reese.
This is more statistical data that proves, no, nobody's tuning in to see Angel Reese.
But when you talk a big game, you'd better be ready to back it up. And right now, those numbers are looking about as flat as a deflated basketball.
New TNT would have to do something to try to spin this in some kind of positive direction, and I just don't think there's a way to do it, because Unrivaled, the women's basketball league, the new women's basketball league that we said would be dead on arrival without Caitlin Clark playing in it, was in fact dead on arrival. All right, let's just say unraveled already, and we just started.
So, just how bad are we talking? Brace yourselves, because it's not a good look. The first 2 days of Unrivaled games averaged around 300,000 viewers. TNT tried to put a positive spin on it, calling it the highest viewed women's basketball games in the network's history. But let's be real, that's not saying much, especially considering all the novelty and marketing hype surrounding the new league.
According to TNT PR, the 2 games on Friday night, the debut games for the new league, averaged 312,000 viewers. Now, I got to ask you, 312,000 viewers. Let's go to 300,011 viewers, because there's probably 1,000 family members watching. What the hell? I mean, did you put your TV on? You're waiting for Charles Barkley on a Friday night hoops, and you just left it on? I mean, what are you doing?
To put it into perspective, these numbers are on par with regular WNBA games that don't feature Caitlin Clark. And we all know what happens when Clark steps on the court. viewership easily hits 1 million. Comparing Unrivaled's debut to the Caitlin Clark effect is like comparing a backyard pickup game to the NBA Finals.
Funniest part about these ratings that they put out, I mean, God, TNT Sports must be dizzy with the level of spin they're trying to give this thing. And Front Office Sports tried to spin it too. No, the ratings are bad.
But wait, it gets worse. I know I didn't think it could either, but here we are. After the initial high of 300,000 viewers, things nosedived faster than a bad flop. Monday's ratings? They fell off a cliff. The first game pulled in less than 200,000 viewers, and the second barely scraped past 100,000. Ouch.
In fact, the viewership actually dropped between the first game and the second game from last Friday, the debut of Unrivaled. Now, why is that significant? Angel Reese played in the second game, and they lost viewers from the first game. Now, once again, tell me how you're moving the needle, because people literally tuned out when your game came.
You've got to wonder what's going through Angel Reese's mind right now. Is she still convinced she's the draw she thought she was? Because these numbers are telling a very different story, and it's not a flattering one.
I didn't know that the Unrivaled League was playing. I saw highlights of it or lowlights of it, and I got to tell you, it's really bad.
Bad? Well, sit tight, because what's happening on the court is even worse. Unrivaled isn't just struggling to attract viewers, it's struggling to put the ball in the hoop. And we're not talking about missing tough shots here. We're talking wide-open layups clanking off the rim like it's a game of hot potato.
Man, I mean, what is really going on here? You see that, and then whatever that is. I don't even know what that was. One more time. Oh, my God. I'm going to drive to the basket, and then I'm going to mess the ball up. No layups. Whatever that is. We don't know what that is. They haven't identified exactly what the hell that is.
When Unrivaled was first announced, fans were promised a showcase of elite talent. The best of the best, they said. A chance to see top-tier athletes competing at the highest level. But what we got instead, well, let's just say it's not exactly highlight reel material. The opening weekend of Unrivaled was a basketball purist's nightmare. Players who were supposed to be professionals suddenly looked like they'd forgotten how to play. Wide-open shots sailed over the backboard. Fast breaks ended in fumbled passes, and don't even get me started on the layups.
Ended up being a blowout, was kind of unwatchable. And I also am just going to, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up here. I feel like I'm all over in this when I'm telling you my initial thoughts, but we need to be able to be more honest with our constructive criticism of women's basketball. And that was also one thing I noticed even with the commentary, sideline interviews, with the pregame show, postgame show. It felt like all of those were put in place as like a marketing tool for the play on the court. And it was just overwhelming praise, 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 praise.
But don't just take my word for it. Basketball analysts and former players have been absolutely roasting Unrivaled's quality of play. One analyst didn't hold back, criticizing the league's overly positive coverage. She said, "We need to be able to be more honest with our constructive criticism of women's basketball." Translation: this is bad, and we need to be able to say it's bad.
All the things that they did are incredible, and that is all great things to point out, but we don't need to, like during the games, just be constantly praising and not calling out certain things like regular play-by-play commentary in studio shows would be doing. If you flip on an NBA game and one of the teams is getting blown out by 30, you're going to have some things to say about it in that studio show to constructively criticize what's going on. And I think for me, that was a little bit of a turnoff with some of the commentary.
And if you think that's harsh, just wait until you hear what happened during Monday's second game between the Laces Basketball Club, featuring Alyssa Thomas and fan favorite Kate Martin, and the Mist Basketball Club, featuring WNBA champion Breanna Stewart and WNBA Most Improved player Dejounte Carrington. The final score was 63-43. That's not a typo. The Mist only managed to score 43 points in an entire professional basketball game. At one point, a team was stuck at 4 points for what felt like an eternity. It was like they were playing on those carnival rims that are slightly smaller than the ball.
We have to start treating, and that's just an overarching thing, I feel like, in women's basketball media in general. There really hasn't been much room for criticism. And if you do criticize anything, it's like, oh, you're hating, just turn it off, this and that.
But the real kicker, the moment that really drives home just how dire the situation is, comes from none other than Draymond Green. Now, Draymond isn't exactly known for holding back his opinions, but even by his standards, this was brutal. He said, "I watched maybe like 2 seconds of it, got upset and turned the TV off." Let that sink in. A 4-time NBA champion, a guy who lives and breathes basketball, couldn't stomach more than 2 seconds of Unrivaled. It's like Gordon Ramsay walking into a kitchen, taking one sniff, and immediately walking out. It's that bad.
TNT drug its feet on getting these ratings out. I mean, again, the marketing spin they're trying to put on this is hilarious. TNT finally released the first television numbers for Unrivaled, the new women's professional 3-on-3 basketball league, and they aren't very good. Of course, TNT tried to spin the numbers as strong, but the facts state the obvious. No Caitlin Clark means no large audience.
You know who wasn't playing in Unrivaled? The one player who actually moves the needle. Let's talk about the Caitlin Clark-sized hole in women's basketball right now. While Unrivaled struggles to keep viewers awake, Caitlin Clark is busy setting the basketball world on fire. And we're not just talking about a slight bump in interest here. We're talking about a seismic shift in how people view women's basketball.
However, one look at the WNBA ratings with Caitlin Clark shows just how much Unrivaled struggled without her. Heck, the Clark effect led to WNBA games that didn't even feature Clark drawing an average of 400,000 viewers. The WNBA drew millions of viewers for its championship series without Caitlin Clark. By the way, they were still embarrassingly low compared to games with Caitlin Clark. That last Indiana Fever playoff game had 2.64 million viewers or something like that. 2.64 million viewers.
Let's break it down. During the WNBA playoffs, Caitlin Clark's games were pulling in some seriously impressive numbers. We're talking almost 3 million viewers for a single playoff game. That's not just good. That's stop what you're doing and pay attention's kind of good. But it's not just about TV ratings. Caitlin Clark is a one-woman economic powerhouse. Get this, she was responsible for 26% of the WNBA's economic activity. That means 1 in every 4 tickets, merch, hot dogs, you name it, sold was directly tied to her presence. Think about that for a second. One player is driving more than a quarter of an entire league's business.
The Fever are going to be over 200,000 higher than the next highest total attendance in league history. Clarkonomics, my friend.
Cash and real impact. While Unrivaled is scraping the bottom of the ratings barrel, Caitlin Clark is proving that women's basketball can be a major draw when you've got the right star power. And it's not going unnoticed. Within the WNBA, players like Nafisa Collier are speaking up, saying Clark should be among the highest paid athletes in the league.
Why?
Because her impact goes way beyond what happens on the court. She's changing the entire economic landscape of women's basketball.
Which makes the obvious even more obvious. Caitlin Clark is the biggest draw in women's basketball. And without her, many fans just aren't going to tune in.
Now, let's put this in perspective. Unrivaled is struggling to attract viewers, even with all the hype and marketing surrounding a brand new league. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is casually pulling in millions of viewers like it's no big deal.
Usually with a new league, viewership early, shoo, and then it settles in. This viewership, and now it'll settle in. Really? I missed Angel Reese on my phone playing? What?
It's more than just numbers on a screen. Clark is creating a buzz that's translating into real-world excitement. People aren't just watching, they're buying tickets, snatching up jerseys, and talking about women's basketball in a way we haven't seen before. This is the stark reality that Unrivaled is facing. They're not just competing against other leagues or forms of entertainment, they're competing against the Caitlin Clark effect. And right now, it's not even close.
Caitlin Clark just did something very smart. Instead of always being the most popular in the room, the smartest in the room, like if I walk into any room and I'm the most handsome and the smartest, I got to get out of that room. I mean, that room isn't doing anything for me.
So, how does this compare to the WNBA? Well, it's clear the WNBA has something Unrivaled doesn't: star power that actually translates into viewership and revenue. While Unrivaled is trying to manufacture interest, the WNBA has a genuine phenomenon on its hands. Remember all that buzz around Unrivaled's big debut? Well, the numbers are in, and they're painting a picture that's far from pretty. Let's dig into these ratings and see just how badly this so-called revolutionary league is struggling.
If I'm the Unrivaled League, I go back to Caitlin Clark and say, what do you need? And then I give it to her. But Caitlin Clark seems beyond that, and that adds to her popularity. Less is more sometimes. A lesson that whoever dresses Angel Reese should learn.
At first glance, things didn't look too shabby. Unrivaled managed to pull in about 300,000 viewers on average for their opening weekend. Not too shabby, right? But here's where it gets interesting. They couldn't keep it up. You know how they say the proof is in the pudding? Well, Unrivaled's pudding started to spoil real quick. As the initial curiosity wore off, so did the viewership. By Monday, the ratings took a nosedive, plummeting to around 100,000 viewers. That's not just a dip. That's a full-on ratings freefall. But wait, there's more. David Levy, an investor in Unrivaled, tried to put a positive spin on things. He emphasized that viewership numbers are just one metric of success and pointed to social media engagement and merchandise sales, boasting about 31 million views across platforms during the opening weekend. That's all well and good, David, but let's be real. If people aren't tuning in to watch the actual games, those social media numbers aren't going to translate into long-term success. Especially when your biggest backer is TNT. The only thing that matters to TV networks is ratings, because that's what determines advertising dollars.
It's going to bash its own programming, obviously. And there's no chance that TNT executives are happy about these numbers now, despite their social media posting touting strong viewership. Well, that's what they're supposed to do. Look, come here. You and I both know, right? We both know. No Caitlin Clark, no watch. No Caitlin Clark in the league, no watch. I mean, let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark's in that league, viewership doubles, if not triples.
And here's where it really gets painful for Unrivaled. Remember how we mentioned Caitlin Clark earlier? Her absence from this league is like a gaping hole in their ratings. Analysts are pointing out that without Clark, who's been a massive boost for WNBA viewership, many fans just aren't tuning into Unrivaled. It's like trying to sell tickets to a concert where the headliner suddenly cancels and gets replaced by your local high school band. So, what does all this mean? Industry insiders are already throwing around the D word: disaster. Unrivaled isn't just failing to make a splash, it's barely making a ripple. And in the cutthroat world of sports entertainment, that's DOA.
Caitlin Clark's star is only going to shine brighter because she handles herself with grace and class, and she's hanging out with the A-list stars.
Despite the initial ratings hiccup, Unrivaled isn't throwing in the towel just yet, especially when it comes to social media. But let's not kid ourselves. This initial buzz doesn't change the fact that Unrivaled is struggling to find its footing. Without a true superstar like Caitlin Clark, it's becoming clearer by the day that star power alone isn't enough to carry a league. You need the right star, someone who can captivate audiences and keep them coming back for more. As Clark gears up for her sophomore WNBA season, the big question on everyone's mind is, will Unrivaled even make it to next year? Only time will tell if they can turn those social media views into actual viewership before the clock runs out. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.